Hi, this is Dan Smith of DPS Legal Counsel, and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be talking about direct primary care. And in particular, if you are a new physician coming out of residency and you've decided to go into direct primary care, what are the first steps you need to take in order to put that plan into action? So, first of all, if you're going to go into direct primary care, congratulations. There's a great movement and trend towards direct primary care in this country, and you hear about a lot of physician burnout over the years and about overworked physicians having to just spend a few minutes here and a few minutes there with each patient, never able to spend much time, good quality time with their patients, and just not having the quality of life that they expected or wanted when they came out of medical school. So if you're coming out of medical school and coming out of your residency now and are thinking about going into direct primary care, good for you. There are some great advantages to being a direct primary care physician. There are also some some limitations and some risks involved. So if you need to go into it with your eyes wide open, talk to someone who knows about direct primary care and can advise you on what the steps are to setting it up the right way, what the risks are, what the rewards may be, and just to work with you as you transition from, say, being a resident to being out on your own, running your own direct primary care practice. So, having said that, let's just kind of jump in. What are some of the first steps you should take if you've decided you want to go into direct primary care and set up your own practice? First of all, are you going to go into practice just alone, or are you going to go in with a physician through have a small group practice type of medical practice, providing the direct primary care? If it's just you and you're going to be a true solo direct primary care physician, then it may be a little simpler on the front end to get it set up, because you don't have to worry about negotiating an agreement with your partner or the other doctor involved, or the other doctors involved in the practice. So if it's just you, obviously you need to, first of all, set up your legal entity, which will be the entity that will be the provider of the medical services. So in Tennessee, you probably would want to set up either a professional corporation or a professional limited liability company. There are pros and cons on the selection of the entity. That's a little beyond the scope of this particular video, but that's something that you should look into. Which type of entity should you choose, whether a professional corporation or professional limited liability company? Once you've decided on the entity form, obviously you'll want to choose a name. Now, one of the things that you may want to do is you may want to file for trademark protection for the name of your practice. If you intend to really market your practice and you want to have some protection so that competitors can't use the name that you've selected for your practice, or can't infringe on your trademark, then you might want to look into getting federal trademark registration protection at or near the front end of getting your practice set up. So you want to pick a name that is not only something that you like, but is good for trademark protection. You need to maybe look and see if the name is already in use or would cause difficulty in getting a trademark. So that's something to discuss with your legal advisor on the front end. You've selected an entity form, you need to select a good name, and third is you need to put it in place and get set up. Now you're going to do all the things that any doctor is going to do, or any business even is going to do on the front end. You're going to need to get insurance, not only to cover your liability protection for for the location where you're located. So, if you own it, the building, obviously that's one thing, but if you're renting, you want to make sure that you have good liability protection in case someone slips and falls or is injured on the premises, so you're just going to get normal insurance protection. You're going to want to have some, make sure that the lease that you enter into for your practice area is good and is protective of you and is not overly burdensome on you. That's again something you would want to have your legal advisor look at and advise you on the terms of your lease. Once you have your entity in place and the name and perhaps trademark registration protection and your lease in place, you're going to also need to obviously get some medical malpractice insurance in place before you start practicing to make sure you're protected and covered. And if you're going to go into, like we said at the beginning, if you're going to go into direct primary care, you're probably going to want to opt out of Medicare. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to have a purely direct primary care practice, because you're going to, if you see Medicare beneficiaries and if you haven't opted out, then you're not going to be able to have those patients come under the umbrella of your direct primary care practice. You're going to have to treat them in accordance with Medicare regulations unless you opt out. So you want to talk to your legal advisor about the proper way of opting out of Medicare if you've made the decision to have a purely direct primary care practice that would serve patients that would also include Medicare beneficiaries or people who would be Medicare eligible. So that's another thing you do at the very outset, is make the decision on whether you're going to be treating Medicare beneficiaries as patients and whether you should go ahead and opt out of Medicare so that you can have a pure direct primary care practice. You also need to, while you're looking at that, look to see if you are really clear that you want to have a pure direct primary care rather than a hybrid practice where you might take insurance from a certain segment of your patients, but that becomes a more complicated discussion. Again, you need to talk to your lawyer about whether you're going to have a hybrid direct primary care model or you're going to have a pure direct primary care where you do not take any commercial insurance for payment on services. Once you've made your decision about how your practice is going to be structured, so you have your entity in place, you have your liability protection in place for your premises, you have your medical malpractice insurance policy in place, you have your trademark registration in place if you're looking to protect the trademark associated with the name or logo of your business, and you have your decisions made on Medicare, opt-in or opt-out or not, and whether you're going to be having a hybrid or a pure model, so that whether you're going to be taking commercial insurance for any patients or not. Once you've done all of that, then you need to make sure that you have all your patient contracts ready and in place. So you're going to need to have, if you have a direct primary care practice, you're going to need to have a contract that you can enter into with your patients that sets forth clearly what the agreement is between you, your practice, and your patients. What's the amount that would be paid on a monthly basis or a yearly basis or a quarterly basis to be a member of your practice and be able to receive your professional services as a doctor. You need to have so you need to have that amount in place that you're going to charge. You need to think about what that's going to be, whether it's $50 or $100 per month, whatever it might be. You need to have that in your contract. You need to make clear in your contract that you are not providing insurance, that this membership agreement is not insurance. You need to also have other disclosures in there. At the present time, membership fees that a patient would pay you under a direct primary care model are not deductible for federal tax purposes. And there's some legislation that's been proposed that would change that, but at the present time you need to make clear that anything they pay you is not a deductible expense federally, and you need to put that in there to make it really clear. You need to have a list of what your covered services are and what are your non-covered services are and what the cost would be if you provide something other than a non-covered service. You could have situation where you have a membership fee per month that's tiered, so that you have one type of membership where all services are covered, including all patient visits under the contract, or you might have a lower amount per month where they pay some amount for when they come in for a visit. Again, you just need to look at that, decide what model and what system you want to have, but make it really clear in the contract what the deal is between you and your patients. Other than that, you have general terms and provisions that you would have in most other contracts about payment to you, and whether, if a payment is missed, how that membership agreement might be terminated, things of that sort. So, but you basically need to have in place and ready to go your membership contract, so that on day one, when you start getting patients, you can have them enter into this membership agreement with you. Now, you're going to want to do all the things that you would do for any kind of business on the startup side. You're going to want to make sure that you market appropriately and do your best to get as many patients signed up that you want to serve as quickly as you can. So, for example, just to look at the economics of running a direct primary care practice, you're going to want to do a budget and see how much your rent is going to be per month, what your utilities are going to be per month, what your costs for employees are going to be per month. Now, we're not having to do insurance claims or even coding necessarily. You're going to have probably a lower overhead than a lot of other physicians might have, but you're going to want to do that budget and see what your out-of-pocket expenses are going to be. You probably need to have some funds available at the startup level just to get through some difficult or short months at the beginning, until you start getting more and more patients that are going to hopefully put your practice into the black sooner rather than later. But for example, if you were to sign up, just as an example, if you were to sign up and have 300 members of your practice, and if the membership fee is $100 per month, or $1,200 per year, with 300 patients, you're going to be bringing in $30,000 a month just in membership fees, which is not a bad monthly income for a primary care doctor just out of residency. So if you can get to a sustainable number of patients soon, this is a model that not only is economically workable for physicians, but produces perhaps a higher quality of life than one in which you have to just see a patient for 5 or 10 minutes and then move to the next patient, and your practice is always going to be having to deal with insurance claims and fighting with insurance companies to receive payment. So there's a lot of benefit to being in direct primary care. There's certainly a great movement in the country now towards having direct primary care, and if you decide that this is something you want to look into, there are some great benefits, but you do have to do it the right way and make sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's, particularly on the front end when you're setting up your practice and getting your contracts in place. So, having said all that, we're now at about over 10 minutes on this particular video, so I think that's enough for today. I want to come back to some of these issues another time when we have a little more time and kind of get into greater depth on them. But I'm very interested in helping physicians who are interested in going into direct primary care to make that work for them. I have a daughter who's actually in medical school now in her second year, and I'm not sure exactly what she's going to want to do when she gets out, but I'm at least preparing for the possibility that she may want to go into private practice herself and do something along these lines. So I want to, I have not only a vested interest, but I have a philosophical interest in physicians moving away from the old way of doing things towards a way of doing things that not only is good for the patients, but is good for the doctor, leads to a better quality of life, potentially for the doctor, and while providing great care to patients. So I think the direct primary care model is one with a tremendous amount of benefit if done correctly. So I hope this video helps, and if you have any questions, please feel free to call me, Dan Smith at DPS Legal Counsel, and until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks.